Welcome to Inland Empire Alive, bringing you issues, events, and perspectives from throughout San Bernardino and Riverside counties. I'm David Brady, and on today's show, I'll welcome Joe Fondi from the San Bernardino Historical Society to talk about his research into the past and his family ties to baseball history. That's today on Inland Empire Alive. Well, here with me to talk about history of various kinds is Joe Fondi from the San Bernardino Historical and Pioneer Society. Joe, welcome to the program. It's a delight to have you.
Thanks, David. Nice to see you.
So I want to go all the way back to the beginning. Talk to me about your childhood. You had a pretty unique childhood growing up in the 1960s here in Southern California.
Yeah, I grew up in Highland. We moved here when I was about 6, and my dad was a baseball player and a baseball scout. We moved to California so he could be a scout. Most of the talent was in Arizona and California. I think there was more in California, so that's why we moved here. And he had been here, had gone to San Bernardino High School, and so we were here, and I would go to high school games and college games, and then he became more of a major league cross-checker and scout, and so I would go to Dodger Stadium, Angel Stadium, and do a lot of running around, and I would get peanuts in the 3rd inning and a hot dog in the 5th inning. It was, but pretty much, if I was bored with the game, I'd just walk around the stadium and run around the stadium.
Well, now you're being modest. I hope you don't mind. Let me brag a little. Joe's dad is Dee Fondi, who was signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers right out of, as you say, San Bernardino High School, but was traded away to the Cubs, made his major league debut with the Cubs, later played for the Pirates and the Reds. Keep me honest.
Yep, that's all correct.
And he was the last batter at Ebbets Field, the home of the Brooklyn Dodgers. That is incredible to me. That one, baseball lives and dies by stats. To know that he had that one little asterisk. And what's incredible to me is that home plate, that actual home plate that he stood at, is on display today at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, I walk by it every day I'm at work at Dodger Stadium, and it is a lot of fun and just brings it all full circle for me.
Well, let's bring it to the present. You have a connection to baseball today. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I'll be doing opening day at Dodger Stadium in a little bit, and probably do 40 or 50 games at Dodger Stadium, Angel Stadium. I'm a cameraman.
How did that begin? What sparked your interest in that side of the sport?
Well, my dad was a scout, and we went to Palm Springs one day, and we sat next to the broadcast booth for the radio announcers for the Cleveland Indians. And I saw them sitting there, and they're smoking and joking, and one of them's got their shirt off, and they're talking to the vendors and having a beer and stuff like that. And I said, that's what I want to do right there for the rest of my life. I thought I might be a broadcaster and be on air more than I have been over my career, and it kind of morphed into everything. But I always watched the camera guys when I was at the games, and I thought, that seems like that would be a lot of fun. And then we had somebody come speak to us when I was going to school at junior high, and he had been a cameraman for the USC football team doing their game films. And so I thought, that's a possibility on down the road. And 20 or 30 years later.
Does that give you a different perspective on how the game is played when you're seeing it through the lens of a camera? Because, again, you're tracking the ball going really fast. And, I saw a clip where you were talking about, you've got to make sure you get the shot so the commentators can comment on what is going out, over the air.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting existence. You have one announcer, you hear an announcer in one ear, and then you hear your director in the other ear, and you try to tune them out at the right time for each one and pay attention and whatnot. And early in my career, I wouldn't even know what the score was or who was winning because I was concentrating on doing it right. Yeah.
What sparked your interest in local history? When did you become a history buff? Obviously, you had this little bit of sort of history in your own family growing up.
Yeah, my dad's cousin had done a genealogy of the family, and I was interested in that. I would read and reread that genealogy, and I thought, well, maybe I can take up the mantle someday. And another cousin called me up, and he was doing some genealogy, family history research, And so that really sparked my interest. And then I love history. And so I thought, well, maybe I can connect some of that to my family. So I had done all of that information, gotten that information on my dad's side and concentrated on that for a while. And I thought, well, maybe I better, look at my mom's side. And so I went to the California room at the city library, and in probably 15 minutes, using the Mary Lewis files at the library, I was able to find more information than she'd found in 20 years of her research on her own. And she'd never been to the California room, and she had unfortunately passed away before she got to see all of this. But I just got chapter and verse on the family and articles and everything, and so it's just been an addiction of sorts for me.
We will hear much more from Joe Fondy about local history right after these messages.
Got cats? Cats are free-roaming pets in our communities. Some cats are owned by someone and may be friendly or shy, while others may not be owned and are what we call feral, meaning they don't want any contact with humans and could be considered wild. Unlike dogs, there is no leash law requiring cats to stay inside or on their owner's property. Animal control agencies across the nation used to pick up stray healthy cats in neighborhoods and bring them to shelters in the hopes that their owners would come to look for them. Unfortunately, because many owners allow their cats to roam, they do not go to shelters looking for their pets, and only about 2% of the cats that end up in the shelter are returned to their home. Studies show that when healthy cats are left in their communities, over 65% return to their owner, while others find a new home with someone in the neighborhood. Studies also show that when a cat is removed from their community, the remaining cats have larger litters and other cats move in, leading to an increased population over time. The most effective method to reduce the number of cats in a community is to spay or neuter them and return them back to their environment. This practice is known as TNR, or trap, neuter, return. In addition to reducing the population of cats over time, TNR also results in reduced attacks on native wildlife, marking spraying by cats on property, fights between cats, and other negative or unwanted behaviors. Animal Services is working to identify areas of the community where TNR is needed. We are hoping to start offering more TNR services to our community as our access to vet care expands. Please visit our website at www.sbcitypets.org to see what you can do to help with community cats and find tips and resources to keep unwanted cats and wildlife out of your yard.
Well, I'm talking with Joe Fondy of the San Bernardino Historical and Pioneer Society. I know that one of your passions is old photographs. Talk to me a little bit about that, how that project got started.
Well, a picture tells a story. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and I've always been involved in pictures, and so I would see old family albums, and I remembered one that my dad had, and my dad grew up in Texas in his early life, and he had pictures of family members standing around with cows and donkeys and horses and stuff like that. And I remembered those, even though I didn't see that album again for 20 or 30 years. And then I would look at that and kind of say, oh, well, this might be this place or this might be that place. And when my mom passed away and my dad passed away, I inherited all these pictures. And I wasn't able to connect them with anything. They weren't labeled. They were just faces that I didn't know. So I ended up tracking down all the cousins that I could find and any relatives, and they would tell me stories and I would make notes. And so I kind of picked up the gauntlet and started doing a little family history and some writing. I've done some writing for TV and whatnot over the years. And so that's just kind of something that is fun to do, and it's kind of a hobby for me now. And so I went to the Historical Society in San Bernardino hoping they would have some information. And we've got a library there that just has all kinds of, old yearbooks from the high schools and whatnot.
Phone books, I understand.
Sure, phone books and maps and so forth. And so my family, my mom's side of the family, I'm the 7th generation to live in San Bernardino or be in San Bernardino. I've lived at different times in San Bernardino, went to Valley College and whatnot. And so I was able to trace all of the families and find out where they lived and get stories about them. And we had a couple of firearms, a couple of guns. And my mom said, oh yeah, my great-grandfather had been a sheriff or a policeman or something like that at one point. And so I did the research on that, and I figured out that probably weren't his guns. They were probably his grandfather's guns. And there was actually a story in the newspaper about one of my great-great-grandfather's second wives had pulled a gun on him. The gun went off and nobody was hurt, thankfully, or maybe he was grazed, but those were those actual guns. And so it kind of tied that story back in. And so also I went to the Historical Society, and they had a picture of, I think it was 1916, the unveiling of a monument. Well, my grandmother had done a little ceremony. She was a child, small child, 7 or 8 years old at the time, and she had actually said something and sprinkled oil and whatnot on the monument to christen it. Well, 100 years later, as the Historical Society, we went back out there and kind of re-celebrated 100 years of that. I was able to go to that exact monument. And then I found a picture of my grandmother and my great-grandmother on that same day, and my great-great-grandfather, who was one of the original members of the Historical Society, from that very day. And so if you save history, you're able to share it with other people who may not have seen these things. And so I've been kind of collecting photographs over the years and just kind of trying to put
Well, let me ask you
stories.
it's kind of a cliched question. Why study history?
Well, if you study history, you can learn from the mistakes of people that have made
Do we
in the
learn?
past.
Like, based on your research, do you think we have learned? Do you think there's been progress?
If we choose to learn, and if we choose not to ignore history or diminish history, I think we do learn. And I think you can learn if you have a love of learning. You know, some people, they might graduate from high school and never try to do any learning again. I interviewed Ray Bradbury once, and he said that he got all of his education. He never went to college. He got all of his education from going to the library and just studying history and so forth, and studying the subjects he was interested in. And so now with the internet and so forth, you can go back and look at things from years ago. So I'm more or less the webmaster at the Historical Society, so I've tried to make it the best place where you can go and find information about your history or the history of your neighborhood or your family or other institutions in town.
Well, let's give out that web address. It is sbhistoricalsociety.com. For folks who are watching this who might be interested in, charting their own family tree or digging into, their own history, what are some resources where are the best places to get started? You mentioned the California Room at the Feldheim Library.
Right. There was a lady named Mary Lewis who was actually a relative of mine. We went to a reunion and she was there when I was like 7 years old, but I don't think we ever met or I knew that. But she had taken files of all public documents from the 1850s and put them in a file and put them with every name. We've got an index of that on our Historical Society website, and then you can go to the California Room and go to each page about each family member. That's a great resource. And go to our website and sbhistoricalsociety.com, and you can look at that index and other stories, other bits of history and stuff like that. That's a great resource right there. I would start there, and then obviously the Mormon Church has done extensive research. If you ever get a chance to go to Salt Lake City, they have a library that's just incredible, and so many online resources, Ancestry.com, and there's others.
Well, I imagine it's gotten easier now that things are digitized and...
It is, yeah. It's great because if you are able to and you know how to use a search engine. I use an advanced search engine, so I have one line where I can put 2 words on it, and then another line where I can put 1 word on it, and I can just go find old articles and things like that. It's just fascinating, the things that are out there that somebody has taken the time to save, and it keeps growing, as the days go by.
Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. I want to remind everybody, label your photographs.
Yes.
Write the stories
Absolutely.
down, label the photographs, otherwise they will be lost for all time. Thank you again, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, David.
Visit iealive.com.